9 years ago, I was living the good life. I was semi-retired, whatever that means. I was active. I was training for my very first triathlon. My two daughters had grown in great marriages, had five wonderful grandsons, and life was good. I'd gotten the golden ring and couldn't ask for more. But when I was training for my triathlon events, I was typically every day I was running and swimming and biking and lifting. And all of a sudden my swim times started to drop. I couldn't do my normal 3,000 yard workouts. It dropped to 2,500 yards and pretty soon 2,000 yards. And I got worried, not because I felt bad, because I felt pretty good. I got worried because of my times. And I wanted to win my event. So I went to my GP and suggested and encouraged him, and we both encouraged each other, that I see a pulmonologist, which I did. And I went through some tests, including what's called a high-resolution CT scan. And a couple of days later, I got a call from his office, and the nurse said, "Hey, Mr. Vick, we got your test results. Come on in and let's. Doctor wants to go over them." I said, "Sure." So we set up an appointment, and she said, "Oh, by the way, bring your wife. Just you don't have to repeat what we're going to tell you." I said, "Sure." So Patty and I drove down. We're talking about dinner that night and the movie this weekend and what we're going to do. And I'm kind of ushered in the office, and we sit down, and doctor comes along and sticks his head in the door and says, "Hey, got your test?" I said, "Okay, well, what's the deal?" He says, "Well, you got a lung disease called IPF." I said, "Well, what does that mean? What's that?" He says, "It's called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis." He says, "It's a lung disease that there's no cure, and there's really nothing I can do." I said, "What do you mean?" Patty turned sheet white. I thought she was going to fall on the floor. And he says, "Yeah." He says, "There's some more tests we can do, but," he says, "there's really not a lot we have to treat it. We just don't know a lot about it." And so I kind of shook my head, and we went up and we go home. We drive home. Quiet drive, by the way. I don't think we said two words. Got home, had a glass of wine, kind of talked about it a little bit. And at that point in time, I started learning a little bit about what's called IPF, or idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Basically, it's a lung disease. It results in scarring or fibrosis in the lungs for an unknown reason. And over time, the scarring gets worse, and it becomes harder to take a breath. And soon the lungs just can't take in enough oxygen, and you die. The average person dies 3 to 5 years after diagnosis. At that time, 8 years ago now, I was told I'd be dead in 2 years. So I guess technically I'm 6 years past my expiration date. So every week there's 1,000 new patients that are diagnosed with PF. Every week 800 will die from it. And there's drugs that exist to slow it down, but they cost close to $100,000 a year, and they don't fix it or cure it. They just slow it and give you a little more time. The only cure, if that's the word for it, is a lung transplant. Yet last year there was only 2,000 lung transplants done in North America. At a patient population for ILD, or interstitial lung disease, which is what encompasses pulmonary fibrosis, there's about 150,000 patients. On top of that, there's people with COPD, emphysema, and other lung conditions that are also looking for lung transplants. So the numbers 2,000 are dismal. And that's why I think you'll find most people that have had a lung transplant are very evangelical about organ donations, as they should, as we all should be concerned about it. So my goal became finding ways to live with PF, not dying from it. I think dying is easy. It's the living that's hard. So I learned some lessons from myself and others along the way, research I did. I spent a lot of time trying to learn this disease and what it was and what it was not, like most people do. I think most patients that live with a terminal disease like PF or IPF become as knowledgeable, sometimes more so than their treating physician, because it's our life or death, so we spend a lot of time with it. But the biggest lesson I learned, I think, amongst many, was to first become an informed patient. I think this is true of anything in life. The more you know about something, the more you can manage it. And the more you can manage it, the less you fear it. So I'd say if a patient's listening to this, or their caregiver, get involved, read, become part of a support group. We have one here in Dallas that I helped found called PF Warriors. We now have close to 1,500 patients worldwide, and we support each other. Watch webinars when they're available. Go to events and learn. The more you learn, the more you're in control, and the more you're in control, I think the better your life becomes. The biggest lesson I probably learned personally is that the important things in life aren't things. The important things are people. And it's people, your family, your friends, and others, that determine the quality of your life and what life you live. And for me, it's been the most valuable lesson. I wish I'd learned that lesson years ago. And as I say to many of my fellow PF patients, I just wish we had all known each other before this came to us, because I've met so many just wonderful people. Wonderful. Listen to your doctor. Do what he says. Avoid the triggers that can set off things like an infection that causes a cold, leads to pneumonia, which for us, collectively as patients, pneumonia is going to almost guarantee what's called an excaboration, meaning your condition jumps ahead a little bit of time. It gets worse. And so I do things like I wipe down my airline seats if I fly. I try to bump fist, not shake hands. I wash my hands a lot, because I know that the better I take care of myself, the better my chances of seeing tomorrow's sunshine. So I'm very cautious. I think the important lesson, too, is to live well. And living well for me, it's kind of there's four initials, METD. It's movement, it's exercise, eating, it's how you think about things, how you do things. Every day, I have a fairly structured day, I guess. I get up every morning, get a cup of coffee for Patty. We'll sit down and we'll kind of talk about the day to be and what's going to happen today and what did we do yesterday. And then we go through a series of exercises. It kind of looks like Tai Chi. It's called Qigong. It's breathing exercises. And we do meditation. That starts the morning out for, I guess, about 20 minutes or so. Have breakfast, and my diet has changed. I'm essentially now following a diet. I hate the diet labels because I'm not sure what they really mean, but my diet is, if I was going to put a label on it, it's probably kind of a combination of what people call the Mediterranean diet and the paleo diet. It's gluten-free, it's lactose-free. I don't go crazy on protein, which some diets encourage. I'll do things like things I shouldn't do. I'll have a glass of wine every night. I enjoy that. Try to eliminate sugar, but my big weakness in life, I think, is ice cream. But I try to live a good life, eating right. I think right. I think meditation has really eliminated a lot of stress in my life. I'm better organized today than I might have been a few years ago. I think things through in a different, more concise way, and I write things down. And I think living life is part of that organization of what you do, and also not just what you do, but what you give. As a patient with IPF, I measure my life not on what I can take, but what can I give. And I find in giving, you can't give anything away. Be it love or hate, it comes back to you in some form. So my life today as a IPF patient living with a terminal disease is probably better than it was 20, 30 years ago because of that attitude of living life fully. And then I start each day and I try to end each day with gratitude. Any day I wake up in the morning and I can see the sunshine and I'm on this side of the grass, that's going to be a good day. It's a lot better than the alternatives. And I'm thankful every night as I go to sleep about the things I've seen or achieved or done. Because my days are the advantage, I think, as a patient living with a disease like pulmonary fibrosis. we all know the line in the sand exists. The advantage I have is I can see it, and that's a big difference. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I hope that you all have collectively a great life, a good life. Keep moving forward with it, and think about some of the things I said. I'm just trying to share. Maybe it's not wisdom, but it's things that I believe and things that have changed my life. So thank you.